Usually I have something witty here, but the 49ers lost to the Atlanta Falcons, so let's just talk about it. Hello and welcome to Niner Nate's Nonsense on Golden State Warriors Ring Night. We are live talking about the team that didn't win the championship last year. Niner Nate with you as always. Kind of a weird week because I think we talked a lot of shit on the Falcons and then they did that. And so this will be interesting. With me as always on Tuesdays is Jamal Armstrong. How are you doing, man?
I am doing okay. I'm doing all right. I mean, we're coming off of a tough, annoying loss. I know we'll dive into it, but we did. We got outplayed. They outplayed us. And so it's annoying. It's annoying. That was a squandered opportunity. I definitely think the 49ers could have played better. But at the same time, I think I'll give the Falcons some credit. They're a little scrappy, competitive team. So good for them. Annoyed that we lost the game, but my hopes and my spirits are still good. We are still 3-3 and first in the division. So I'm not going to sit here and freak out, but it's not a good look. We've already lost a couple games we shouldn't have lost.
And if I'm making excuses for this game, it's like a back-to-back in basketball. They didn't come back to the Bay between these games, and I know that's never affected them before, but maybe it did this time if I'm trying to make excuses for it. But, yeah, they've lost to some bad football teams. The Bears and Broncos look worse every single week. This team wasn't very good, except a 49ers throwback. And it's just kind of weird that they continue to drop these games that they should be winning, right? And then it kind of makes me think about the fact that last year they did the same thing. They were 3-5. So it got worse. Last year it was actually worse than it is now. And so the question I ask myself is it going to get worse, right? They play the Rams and the Chiefs back to back. There's always a chance it gets worse, but it really feels like after a loss like this in Atlanta and the fact that Kansas City's coming off a loss, Sunday is going to be the best football game of the season for the 49ers, unless they make the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship game. I'm saying, but like in the season, I feel like this is the best game because these are two teams who are desperate for wins. I know that the Chiefs don't want to go to 4-3 in that division, even though the Chargers suck, the Raiders suck, and the Broncos suck. I just don't think they want to do that because that means they have to go to Buffalo for the AFC Championship game. And I think that would be a bummer for them because I think they've hosted the AFC Championship game like every year for the last 5 years or something like that.
Dang, is it that many? Woo!
Something like that, yeah. And so when you think about that, it really makes me, when you lose these type of games, and I know the whole NFL is just parody all over, right? The Bucks stink. Who would have thought, right? The Bucks have the same record as the Niners. The Vikings are 5-1 because they're playing bad football teams. It's you and that fly. And so it really feels like maybe that's just this league this year. I mean, the Seahawks are 3-3 and they are awful. Like they are terrible, but somehow the Cardinals are actually worse. And so it's just
Cardinals suck.
They're terrible, right? And so it's just kind of weird that they lost to this team at 10 a.m., their first 10 a.m. game, and they never really looked, once the second half started, they never really looked like they wanted to be there. The first half, they get down 14-0, right? Kyle does some magic. Jimmy makes some decent plays. The run game gets going, and they're able to come back from being down 14-0. But it never really felt like, as soon as they were down 21-14, it kind of felt like they weren't coming back. The offense just didn't want to move, and it could be because it was a 10 a.m. game or they were tired or whatever, but this is a game you should win, and I understand like you can drop these games, but this just makes the end of the schedule even bigger. Granted, as this season goes on, Jamal, it really feels like maybe this is a pretty easy schedule, and them dropping these 3 games won't come back to bite them in the end because right now the Vikings are the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Giants are the teams that are the number one seeds in the NFC or the potential for number one seeds. And I don't think any of those teams are better than the 49ers when they play their game and they're fully healthy.
That's a great point right there. And I do agree with that too, because you specifically mentioned the Eagles, right? They're still the only undefeated team. But funnily enough, like you just said, when we're healthy and when we're playing our game, I think we match up awesomely with the Eagles. But I also think that they have the team that matches up really well with us. So I actually think us versus the Eagles, whether that's in the playoffs, would be a really good game. Two really good football teams, two physical football teams, good players at corner, good players at receiver. They got a quarterback that can move. Like they've got some pieces, but so do we. And we know what this defense is when they're healthy too. So that part, should it come to that down the road, I actually would love to see that matchup because I think that would be awesome. But you also mentioned the Vikings as well too. And like you said, they're 5-1 right now. It's still early, right? We're getting more towards the middle of the season. We're getting to the second.
This is early for Kyle
third.
Shanahan time.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. And so, like you just said, and I agree with you. I actually wrote a tweet about this the other day too. The Bucks, the Ravens. How many teams are 3-3 right now? 2-3 or 2-4 that by the end of the season are going to end up being 11-6, 10-7. Which nowadays 10-7 is good. That's a good football team. I think that's a solid number to win. The 49ers currently sit 3-3. The question is, and I think Throwback asked it here too, like, what is wrong with the offense? What will they do?
That's what I was going to get to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the part. And I won't even dive into that right now too. But I think when I look at this team and I say, wow, we are 3-3. We just as easily, in my opinion, we should be 4-2, and we very well could be 5-1. And there's a legitimate thought that we could be 6-0. Not that it would happen. It clearly didn't happen. But self-inflicted wounds. You look deeper, self-inflicted wounds. How many times are these guys going to drop certain passes? Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to continue to be on? Like, these are questions to ask. I look at this 49ers football team and I say, what will I get from a week-to-week basis? Can we get out of our own way? Because this team is more than talented enough to go deep, and they can go on a run. I just don't like banking on, we started 3-5 last year. We'll turn it around. I hope so. I sure hope that's what will happen. But I don't like banking on, we can start slow. No, each game matters. It really does, right? And so the further you get into the season, I'm hoping these 3 games that we dropped early don't matter. I'm hoping it doesn't affect us. The nice thing right now is, like I had said a little bit earlier, our division is weak right now. Everybody's playing like crap. 3-3 is leading the division right now. The Cardinals look like trash. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me. The Cardinals look like trash. The Seahawks look better than expected, but I still know that we are better than them. We are absolutely better than them. And then the Rams are in shambles right now. So, like I said, I'm not going to freak out about it, but there's got to be some changes. The offense has to step up, and it has to start now, especially during these injuries. With six of the 7 starters were injured coming into this game, and then we saw what happened to Charvarius Ward, which made it 7. It's not an ideal situation, and the offense has to step up now. They've got to.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is at this point, the offense has to pick up the slack now for the defense being injured. And I think Bosa will come back and, guys will come back and they'll be fine on defense, but they're not going to be the defensive powerhouse, until they get that other corner spot figured out where Emmanuel Mosley was playing. And I think they'll get that figured out once Ferret comes back. But until then, it's time for Kyle Shanahan to really show us what this offense can do. And I feel like every week, the offense, while it's not scoring a ton of points or it's, lacking in some form, I think I see like another little wrinkle from the offense every week. This week we saw Jimmy Garoppolo throw the ball downfield a lot more, right? And I've complained a million times. I think that the offense is hurt by the fact that he can't do it. But if he's doing it consistently, throwing the ball down the field, that's at least going to make defenses play the 49ers differently. And we won't have so much of the let's crowd the box and make sure we make Jimmy's life miserable type of stuff. And so I think that if Kyle can continue to put those shots in there and the guys cannot drop those balls, I think that'll change the way people play this offense, and way to go against this offense, where I think Kyle will be able to get in his bag a little more like he did in Carolina, where, he threw the ball a little bit more. Once he was able to run the ball, he got the offense he wanted. They threw the ball when they needed to, and they just drove down the field every single time. And I know that's because it's a bad football team they're playing. That fly. But the thing is I really feel like if Kyle Shanahan can get this offense going, and get it going in the way that it was going in 2019 and get the run game going. And it really feels like this pass blocking on this offensive line has actually been pretty decent, which is actually was pretty impressive considering, they're missing a lot of their starters, but Aaron Banks is an absolute stud. I think anyone who said a bad thing about Aaron Banks owes him an apology. If we're talking about players on the 49ers we all owe apologies to, it's Aaron Banks, because a lot of people shit on him and shit on that pick. And I think at this point, the weakest point of that offensive line is not even the backup tackles. It's fucking Jake Brendel, who we all said
they should have
figured out a center. And it could be just one game, right? But Jake Brendel, the center, the thing that makes the offense go in a Kyle Shanahan system, the person who literally is what Kyle Shanahan has said is his guy, like basically the brain of the offense. Kyle Shanahan has said himself he needs a great center to run his offense the way he wants. They don't have that. And it really feels like because they don't have that, the offense continues to struggle. And so my thing is people are talking about, let's trade for Christian McCaffrey. Let's trade for Brian Burns. No, let's trade for a center because Jake Brendel is not a starting NFL center. And I think once they have a starting NFL center in this system with the guys they have, I think the offense will get going again. And that's my number one reason I think the offense is bad, is because of the fact that they do not have a starting caliber NFL center as currently constructed.
Yeah, and I believe that's absolutely fair too. And then just tying it back to this Falcons game as well too. Like I said this last night with Amin, and it might be one of the more, I'd say maybe one of the more smarter questions or things I feel like I've said, especially when it comes to this season. But like weird things can happen during football games, right? Like we don't know exactly how a game will play out. Sometimes weird stuff just happens, right? And what I mean by that is Jimmy Garoppolo played a pretty solid, pretty good football game. He was actually, and I said this last night too, and I really mean this, in terms of Jimmy Garoppolo being like on, right? I thought he played really well. He was playing within rhythm, getting the ball where it was supposed to be. Most of the time it was on time. There were a couple of throws I thought were late. But I thought generally speaking, he played really, really, really solid football. And there were obviously the Warner drop, the Ray McCloud drop. Those were big plays because it would have given us the ball in their territory, especially the Ray McCloud one would have led to us inside of their 25, I believe. So even if we don't get 7, I'm thinking you could potentially get at least 3 points out of that. And so should that have happened on the Warner play and then again on the Ray McCloud, that would have made it a 20-28 game rather than 14-28 final score. And you just wonder at that point, could things have been different? Would the football game have turned out differently in a 1-score game? Do the Falcons play a little bit more tight? Or is there another potential turnover? Do you look at that with 8 minutes left in the game and play with a little bit more urgency? Because I didn't think they played with a lot of urgency the last 8 minutes of the game. And part of the reason I don't think they did was because the defense was so gassed. They ran down our throats. The Falcons ran down our throats, 170 total yards rushing. When's the last time the 49ers gave up 170 yards rushing? I legitimately can't tell you off the top of my head. On the flip side, we only ran the ball 16 times for 50 yards. So just as effective they were, we were that ineffective. I also think we kind of got away from that and did go towards the pass. It's almost one of those games where you don't want to put it in Jimmy Garoppolo's hands and say, listen, go lead us to victory. But it was put into his hands. I don't think he actually failed. I thought he did I don't want to say phenomenal, but for Jimmy Garoppolo standards and what I expect from him, I thought he did really well. And there were guys that dropped plays that could have led to more points. So I look at those two drives and I say, dang, like what could have happened had it have been 20, 21 or to 28 at that point? Could that have changed things? Potentially. And so what I said to Amin that I find really provocative was, what can I expect? Do I expect the 49ers pass catchers and players to step up and play hard and not drop those passes? Or do I expect Jimmy Garoppolo to come out again or consistently play at the level that he played last week? I would put more percentage on the 49ers players stepping up and playing to the football that we've seen them play even over the course of this season. I'd expect them to play that way, to play hard, to play for each other, more than I would expect Jimmy Garoppolo to play just as well as he did last week. And that's not supposed to be a shot at Jimmy Garoppolo. That's me saying, I don't think they're going to continue to drop this many balls, especially balls when they're wide open like that. I don't expect that to happen every week. Do weird things happen? Does football happen? Do guys press at times when you go up or down 14 and then they score again and it's 28-14? Like, do you guys press? For sure. But in my opinion, I thought Jimmy Garoppolo played a really solid football game. I expect that everybody else will step up. Jimmy Garoppolo will have his ups and downs. If he can stay somewhat consistent, more up than down, I still think this offense can be really good. I don't want to say great. I don't think they're a great offense, but I think they can be good. And that's where I think the offense can improve. But that's literally 50-50, right? I didn't give you a straight up answer. I said, I'm still asking the question right now. What will we see out of them? What will we see? Truthfully, nobody knows, but I can bank on the pass catchers and those guys playing hard and catching passes. I'm more willing to bank on that than I am Jimmy Garoppolo playing turnover-free football for the rest of the season, if that makes sense.
No, I think I agree with you. I think Garoppolo was fine on Sunday. I don't think he did anything terrific. He didn't do anything terrible. I think that the accuracy downfield when he's actually throwing balls decent downfield, that's a great sign for the 49ers, I said, like, because that's going to change the way teams watch the film and study and play the 49ers, because they'll at least have to second guess about him beating them down the field with his arm. And I think that him doing that in Atlanta was good. I think that there are still things, about him that I wish they're different, but I think that that's just Jimmy. He's limited. That's who he's always going to be. And that's just who we live with. And so the problem is when your guys are not, and it feels like this sometimes. I don't know how you feel about this, but it feels like not only does Kyle Shanahan have to be perfect, but also his offensive playmakers have to be absolutely perfect. You can't even have one drop when Jimmy Garoppolo is your quarterback, because he can't make anything off schedule. He's not doing anything, out of the normal. You watch that Mahomes-Allen game this weekend, constant shit off schedule. Crazy stuff happening all the time, right? Those guys are elevating not only their head coach, but also the players around them. Travis Kelce is a better football player because Patrick Mahomes is his quarterback. The Niners, George Kittle is a better tight end. And because George Kittle is a better tight end, it makes Jimmy Garoppolo a better quarterback than if he didn't have him. And I think it's kind of interesting how... Exactly. Deebo Samuel makes Jimmy Garoppolo better, not Garoppolo makes Deebo Samuel better. Patrick Mahomes is making, Juju Smith-Schuster look like a stud when Juju Smith-Schuster hasn't really been the same guy for a long time. And so it's that kind of thing.
Dude, he's making Marquez Valdes-Scantling look amazing.
Exactly.
And he's just a deep threat, but he's making him look really good.
And so when we talk about Garoppolo, we can say, oh, hey, he was fine. He didn't make mistakes. But the problem is so much has to go perfect sometimes for this team to win. And I think when things don't get perfect or aren't perfect, the whole fan base freaks the hell out. And because of that, that's why we have all these crazy things. People saying, oh, fire Kyle. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. The offense is terrible. What's the reason? Is it because Mike McDaniels was the offensive mastermind? All this crap, right? And I think that it's just because they have not found their offensive identity yet. And they don't find their offensive identity sometimes till week 6, till week 7. It takes time for this team, and it's always been kind of a weird thing, and I'm not excusing Kyle for that, but I think that if people are a little more patient with the, beginning of the season for this team, I think that they'll be rewarded towards the end. And hell, we could be looking back on this in 5 weeks, and they're still terrible. They're still not scoring offense, and then, hey, there's a problem, and we'll have to really think about who to blame. But right now, I think that their number one priority should be finding a center at the deadline, finding someone to play center, because right now this is not cutting it. You cannot have Jake Brendel out there getting multiple penalties, not running the offense properly, and then not to mention you have guys dropping the football. I mean, that plus guys are dropping the football. Drops happen, right? The sport is about catching a ball that's not that big. And that's going to happen. But when the drops happen, plus the penalties, plus the center not playing well, it's just not going to go your way. And you're away. You're in Atlanta. You haven't been home in 2 weeks. There's just a lot of factors in that game on Sunday that just kind of compounded, almost like the monsoon game where the monsoon happened. It died off for a little bit. Justin Fields scored. The monsoon came back way worse, right? And it was just like, it's like a stream of bad luck. A bad luck thing happens, and another bad luck thing happens, and it just kind of kept happening, right? It was just a bunch of bad luck came to hit the 49ers. They end up losing that game. Now, very well, that could be what it is. And next week against Kansas City, the offense is back. But right now, we're talking about this team right now, and I just think that they got to figure this out on offense, because right now the offense is holding back the defense, and now the defense is injured to the point where the defense cannot pick up the slack, I think.
Yeah, and that's where I know earlier when we talked about me giving the Falcons some credit, the part that I gave them credit for is sticking to their game plan. They knew our weaknesses. Let's be honest. They knew we were starting Ridgeway and Akeem Spence, and they knew they could run on us. And they did. They didn't get away from that. Mariota only attempted 14 passes and had his first and only incompletion in the fourth quarter. That's what happens. When you see a quarterback that only throws the ball 14 times, literally the first thing you think is, dang, their running game must be crazy. Yeah, and it was. We could not get off the field on third downs. I believe they were 8 or 9 for 14 on third downs. That's drive extending. They're continually extending drives, which leads to more minutes for the defense out on the field, getting tired. And they were continuously converting on third and shorts, third and threes, third and fours, third and mediums. Like they were continuously doing that. I give them credit for that. It's almost like if you look at their team and then you look at our team, clearly we're a much more skilled version of what I think they would like to be. Like they do want to run the ball. They do have a quarterback that can also run the ball very well as well. Marcus Mariota, for everything he isn't, he's very good at running the ball. The dude can run. He's quick, very athletic. This fly, goodness gracious. But yeah, so they can do those things. They have one really good corner, and Casey Hayward, who's clearly past his prime, but still very good. He's solidified CB2 for them. And then obviously defensively, they're not quite on the level that we are, but they've got some pieces there. Obviously, you can look at Drake London. You can look at the tight end as well. They've got some young pieces. They're building towards something. And the part that I give them credit for is they generally know their identity and they're competitive. Like they're playing for their coach. They're playing for one another. That part I give them credit for. That being said, when I look at the 49ers, I did think this was a game that we still should have won. They've shown that they do have solid depth. This fly is killing me, man. They do have really, really, really solid depth. And so that's why I just have to give them credit, because they were able to exploit Hassan Ridgeway. They were able to exploit Akeem Spence on those third and shorts. I remember a specific play. I think it was the third quarter. Yeah, it was the third quarter. Near the end of it, Tyler Algier, the Falcons running back, was able to drag Akeem Spence like 2.5 yards to pick up the third down. And I'm just like, man, that's not Kinlaw. That's not Armstead. For everything that Kinlaw isn't, he is a really good run defender. Like he is.
And that's the thing is when you're this injured, you're not playing NFL starter guys. You're playing your guys who, and that's the thing about Akeem Spence and Hassan Ridgeway. They're really good at being rotational guys, come in at, but when those guys are your main guys and you don't have Nick Bosa out there at all, I mean, it was obvious, right? And Kinlaw's going on the IR, so I don't know what's going on with Kinlaw. But Armstead, hopefully he comes back soon, because they're going to need him against Kansas City.
Right.
I mean, it's just when you have this kind of injuries, you're not going to be the same team. That's just how it is, guys. I mean, like anyone who thinks that okay, the 49ers are going to lose 8 starters on defense and they're just going to go out there and they're going to be the same guys. No, that's not how it works. It's just not how it works. When Steph Curry goes down on the Warriors, they're not in the same team, and that's one player. Like they're losing some of their best football players right now. Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead are 2 of the best football players in the 49ers, and so is Emmanuel Mosley. Like people continue to down talk Eric Armstead for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's because awesome. Grant hates him, and people just have this weird thing with Grant. I don't know what it is, but people
he's a top 5 D tackle in the league.
He's one of the best run stoppers in the entire league, and people continue to downplay it. Well, when you're watching these games, I don't know how you can downplay it anymore, because when he's not out there, they can't stop Tyler Algier. Who the fuck is Tyler Algier? Who the fuck is that? Why can't you stop him? And so
he's a rookie, man.
at this point, like they're going to have problems on defense because they're injured, right?
Yeah.
But the offense needs to find a way to pick up that slack, and it's not. In a game like Sunday, it did not. And it might count against Kansas City, right? But when we're just looking at this Atlanta game, the offense did not pick up the slack that it needed to in order for the defense to be able to play subpar, right? The defense didn't play that well. People are like, oh, well, they only allowed 21 points. Yeah, but they allowed 163 rushing yards. When was the last time a San Francisco 49ers defense allowed 163 rushing yards?
That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. That's
And
what I'm saying.
so when they're injured, it's going to be different. And so now it has to be Kyle looking at his offense and finding out ways to do weird stuff on, on first and second and third down and find a way to get the ball down the field where Jimmy Garoppolo, it is not relying on him throwing the ball 35 times, because when they throw the ball more than 35 times, they generally don't win. And I understand there's stats to that where it's like, well, you're generally not throwing the ball as much because you're running the ball to run the clock out when you're up. But like, it's just a stat line in general.
Right.
If the 49ers throw the ball more than they run the ball, they lose. And you know why that is? Because their quarterback is limited. He is mid-tier. If your quarterback is mid-tier, you do not want him throwing the ball with the game on the line. You want to run the ball. You want to be able to score points. They're not able to score points when they throw. It's just not happening right now. And so that plus drops, you're never going to win.
Yeah.
You're never going to win.
Yeah. I think the last thing that I would want to add, just so we're very clear too, because when you look at the beginning of this season, or even during the offseason, once this team was starting to kind of round together, we were finding out who the 53-man roster was going to be. A lot of us said, dang, this 49ers team is probably one of, if not the most complete team in the NFL, right? Just top to bottom, you're looking at the roster.
When healthy.
Real solid. Yes, exactly. When healthy. Real solid depth. And that's what we called it. We said we had solid depth and clear starters, right? When I say that, I also want to very much point out that Kerry Hyder, I think I said this last week too. I did. Kerry Hyder was a spot starter. Like, he did start last year for the Seahawks. Akeem Spence, Hassan Ridgeway have been really good rotational guys who could fill in and make spot starts. But that's my point right there. These guys that we have as depth, Ridgeway, Akeem Spence, Kerry Hyder, those guys can make spot starts. It was never expected, and I don't think that it's fair that they would be able to hold up the same standard that the starters have had. When you look at Armstead's out, Kinlaw's out, Bosa's out. Like, Ebukam was out for a little bit. He was able to come back in, right? He got hurt in the Panthers game. You got Azeez Al-Shire on the injured reserve. Like, it was never that we were supposed to have 7 of 8 starters defensively be out and that we'd be able to hold up at this historical rate that we've been at. So knowing that, you said it, I said it, I think every more rational fan has said this. Okay, we've got these guys out. We need to have the offense step up now because our depth is being tested. This is an opportunity for these depth pieces to get their chance to start. Can they make some plays? Can they make some splashes? Can you be good during those spot starts? That was expected. No one was ever trying to say that this team would be able to have all these starters go down because of injury, then our depth could come in and perform at the same level. That was not to be expected. We're currently the most banged up team in the NFL, and it sucks because we've experienced this literally like 2 years ago. So I just wanted to make that part very clear too. These backups, a lot of them can start and have started for worse teams. And then I look at, I specifically did not mention Charles Omenihu because I do think that he can be a starter right now on a lot of teams. No, he potentially could start like this year too. But the 49ers also drafted.
I like Drake Jackson too.
I like
think Drake Jackson is super talented as well. I think that he'll be a starter next year. I don't think he's a starter this year. I think he's perfect spot.
And that's exactly what I'm getting at. Omenihu could start. We're very fortunate that we're in a position where he doesn't have to start because we have a Drake Jackson, we have a Samson Ebukam, we have so much solid depth, and so that's the only point I'm trying to make. We have good depth, and that's what it was supposed to be, depth. If we have to rely on these guys long term, it's just like any football team. When guys start going down, you can't necessarily perform at the highest level because certain guys just go down. So we're in a tough situation. Can we weather the storm? I expect we can. It depends on how long these guys are out. We should be getting some reinforcements this next week, though.
Let's talk about one more thing before we get to Kansas City. A lot of people, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this because I'm still kind of unsure on my thoughts on this, to be honest with you. I thought about it a lot. A lot of people talk about why the fact that, and I know, okay, first of all, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have drafted this roster. More Kyle Shanahan than anything, right? Kyle Shanahan handpicked every player on this team, defense or offense, right? Maybe except for Jimmy Garoppolo because that was kind of a different thing. Why do you think that someone who is considered an offensive mastermind or someone who is an offensive guru who, literally went to the Falcons and made them the best offense in the league is so reliant on having a great defense? And I know great defense is super important in the modern NFL, but why do you think it's so important for them to have a great defense when the offense when the offense should be the thing that the 49ers are known for. And
You
they
know
have the
what?
players
I
to
agree.
show that they have a great offense, right?
Right. I agree 100% with you. I've been thinking about this too. I don't know if they. I'll say this just to start. If I'm going to be just very blunt and honest about it, I don't know if anyone knows the answer outside of that one man, Kyle Shanahan. Like that may be legitimately a question Greg Popper or Matt Mayoko could ask him, and maybe he could explain. Well, we have such a great defense. We like to lean on our defense. Yes, would we like to have the offense step up a little bit more? For sure. But I thought Jimmy Garoppolo played really well. Like that sounds like something Kyle Shanahan would say. Jimmy Garoppolo played really well. I think he's one of the more better quarterbacks in the league. But I think if you were to legitimately talk to him off air, one-on-one, he trusted you. Whether maybe you're someone like Chris Sims who thinks he knows him very, very well. He's a friend. I think he would tell you, and this is my honest answer. I think Kyle Shanahan would legitimately say in an honest, gun to your head type situation, I just don't have the quarterback that I'm looking for to be able to expand and open up the playbook the way I would like to. We get a lot of up and down with Jimmy Garoppolo. Yes, we drafted a young man in Trey Lance, who I believe has a high ceiling, but he's still young. He still needs to be molded as well, too. He's going to have his ups and downs. And that's why you had said, we'll start the kid last year. And then we looked at what happened this year. He was the starter, right? Oh, Jimmy Garoppolo's gone to 2 NFC Championships games. He's gone to a Super Bowl. He's so accomplished. Did we win? No. Has his play been so superb that there was no way Trey Lance couldn't see the field? Absolutely not. We've had stretches where we didn't look great. During that I'll never forget this. During that 3-5 stretch last year, we were 3-5 in large part because we were not playing complimentary football. Jimmy Garoppolo was sub 30% on third downs during that 3-5 stretch. That turned around, as well as at that same point, we moved Armstead to defensive tackle, and our run defense shored up amazingly. Like those two things happened, and they kind of coincided at the same time. I mentioned those two specific things because when things work out perfectly and this 49ers team is playing complimentary football, we're staying ahead of the chains. We're super tough to beat. When Jimmy Garoppolo is more on and doesn't turn the ball over, we're so tough to beat because our playmakers are so good. They're generally not going to fumble. They're generally going to catch their passes. And then the defense has proven that if we can put up 20, 21, 24, 27 points, generally speaking, they're not allowing teams to score 30 on them. So I think Kyle Shanahan would legitimately tell you that. Why hasn't this offense been quite the way that we'd like to see it, especially if he's supposed to be this genius? One, I do think teams have figured out Jimmy Garoppolo legitimately. We know what he is. Yeah, he's going to throw short to intermediate, and that's his bread and butter. So you want to stack the box, right? And then with Trey Lance in there, it's a little bit more of a threat. With Trey Lance, even though it was a short sample size, I believe we were averaging just under 6 yards per attempt rushing-wise. With Jimmy Garoppolo, that changes all the way to 3.9. So it's way different, right? With Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not a threat. There's not going to be no zone reads. They're not going to run him like that. So
I mean,
that would be my answer.
That it's interesting because I remember when we looked at I think me and you did it. We looked at the all 22 for the Seahawks game before and after Trey Lance got hurt, and they played him completely different. And we obviously no one really understood who Trey Lance is. As a 49er fan, we don't even know who Trey Lance is yet.
Right.
And so I think that kind of what Kyle was writing into the season is that he was going to have someone that nobody really understood yet. He was going to have bumps and bruises along the way. He was going to be able to run his offense a certain way. Well, he had to completely change his offensive philosophy overnight. And I think that because of that and going back to Garoppolo, I think that they've kind of figured Garoppolo out. And so he's going to have to do more and be even more perfect in order for them to win on offense against good football teams. And I suspect, as someone who supports Kyle Shanahan through everything, that he'll figure it out. It's just going to take some time. It may not be till after the bye week. It may not be to that Chargers game. But I think they're going to come out against Kansas City, and they're going to give them their all. So let's talk a little bit about Kansas City, and we'll head out for the night.
For sure.
What do you think about this Kansas City Chiefs team? On defense, they're pretty decimated, dealing with a lot of injuries like the 49ers are. But on offense, I mean, Patrick Mahomes made a terrible decision at the end of that Buffalo game. But in anybody's world, a minute before he makes that throw, did anyone think there was any way Buffalo wins that game? Because I didn't. I knew I thought Patrick Mahomes was going to march down the field and kick a field goal.
Right. And that's fair to say, right? Because how many times has he done that, right? I believe
million.
I believe I saw a stat. I forgot exactly how much it was, but he's the only. So in games where he's trailed by at least 10 points, he's the only quarterback with a 500 record or better. Like, he's trailed at 10 points in that game, yet he still has come back and won. And he's like well over 500. I think it was like 11-5 or something like that. He was like well over 500. So to me, that says a lot about the player that he is, the mental toughness that he has, and the belief that that team has in him, right? And well worth it. He's proven that over the course of his career. He came out, obviously sat behind Alex Smith, but then he came out on fire, right? 50 some touchdowns his first year starting, and they've hit the ground running. And they've only been as good or very close to it ever since. So to think that they were going to find a way to win that game, there's nothing wrong with thinking that as well. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He's proven time and time again. Look back at the end of that first half. There was like 13 seconds left in that, and they still came away with 3 points. Like, shades of what happened last year in the championship game as well too, when they were playing them. The same thing happened. Like, the kid just finds ways to do crazy magical things on the football field. He is very talented. But I do like, there are certain things about this Chiefs team that I do find interesting, and I kind of like. I think this year, and this is where I give Mahomes more credit. I think I've talked to you about this more in DMs than we have like live person to person, things like that. Because I've always thought Josh Allen I thought last year Josh Allen was the best quarterback in the league, in my opinion. Just that one last year. But then I've always said Mahomes was right there too. And Mahomes has been the standard for probably the past 4 years. I think legitimately you could say that. But I also said this in some of my conversations. It's going to go back and forth, in my opinion. Absolutely. 4 years. These two are clearly the two best quarterbacks. Where I give Mahomes more credit right now that I really like, who is not there this year that they had last year? Tyreek Hill. That's big. Tyreek Hill is a cheat code, like legitimately. And to be honest, Patrick Mahomes is a cheat code too. He has the arm to take advantage of the cheat code that was Tyreek Hill. They don't have that guy. Can you still hear me? Hopefully you can still hear me. I'm going to keep talking. They don't have that guy in Kyle Shanahan, or they don't have that guy in Tyreek Hill, but they do still have Travis Kelce. So what I mean by saying that is I think that we've seen a more consistent, a more methodical Chiefs offense than we're seeing more explosive. Do they still have the ability to be explosive? Yes. But at the same time, you can still hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you the whole time. My internet's being weird.
Okay, so I think we're getting a more methodical Patrick Mahomes. I think we're getting a more Mahomes that's understanding what's on the field. He said after his first year, I didn't fully understand everything that I was seeing, right? I couldn't understand how to read coverages until about halfway through the season, like fully. And so this year you're seeing Mahomes take advantage of Travis Kelce, clearly the number one option on that team. But as you and I had said it in the introduction, Marquez Valdes-Scantling looks amazing. And we know how good of a quarterback Aaron Rodgers is. Patrick Mahomes is making this kid look that much better, in my personal opinion. Like, he's legitimately performing like a solid.
I do think that the 49ers will have an advantage. I do think they have an advantage because I feel like they can take Kelce out of the game.
And that's exactly that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm getting to.
Take Kelce out of the game.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's
my thing is I think they'll take Kelce out of the game, and when. Oh, sorry. This connection is terrible. I'm sorry. Okay. Continue. You're good.
So no, that's the part that I agree with you though, because I do think that, and that was kind of the picture I was trying to paint anyway. They don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, right? Our defense, if we're healthy or mostly healthy, is very similar, if not better than it was in 2019. Currently, outside of what we saw last week, and when we're healthy, we're playing better than we did in 2019. So if that's the case, you do have a Jimmy Ward that's still going to perform at a high level, albeit maybe he has a club on his hand. He's at least going to be in the right position. He's still a good tackler. He's going to make good tackles. You have a Talanoa Hufanga who's proven already that he is a ball hawk, right? And he more often than not is going to be in the right position. You have, if Charvarius Ward is able to play, which he's playing his former team, I highly doubt he's not going to play. So you've got a Charvarius Ward. Clearly, Emmanuel Mosley went down, and that sucks because I think that would have hampered their offense even a little bit more. But that's where I think the Chiefs are going to try and go after, whether it's Womack, whether it's Lenore. They're going to try and get Travis Kelce matched up on those guys. like often. So this is a game where I'm
Absolutely.
curious to see if Charvarius Ward potentially travels. Maybe he'll travel because I would put him solely on Travis Kelce. I trust Lenore. I trust Womack to be able to play with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, to be able to play with McCole Hardman. They're good players. They are, but they're not as proven as we've seen from Travis Kelce. Go ahead.
Jamal, I think you can put Fred Warner on
Kelce.
Travis Kelce.
You could do that too.
I think that's something they could do. Because Fred Warner is so good at coverage. I really feel like if they put Fred Warner on Travis Kelce, then that would be a strategy for that. Because once you take Travis Kelce out of the game, I really feel like it's anybody's football game at that point. And as long as they don't get too far behind, they'll win. And so, that's what I think they'll end up doing. I think that the defense will be better because Bosa will be back. The offense will help because you'll have Trent Williams probably going up against Chris Jones, which that's probably your best bet, right? Is to have their best defensive player going up against Trent Williams. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens, but it really feels like Chris Jones has been their game wrecker in this season so far. And I know he was kind of the game wrecker when we played them too. And so I feel like if they can get Trent Williams, Nick Bosa back, they'll be able to at least have a chance to win this game. And it's going to come down to Jimmy Garoppolo not turning the ball over and Jeff Wilson not fumbling it, because Jeff 100%. Wilson has had a fumble problem. It's just who he is at this point. At this point in his career, he's had a lot of fumbles for being, a running back who hasn't started that much. And I understand they're starting running back. Elijah Mitchell's not coming back till the bye week, right? Mm-hmm. But if here's one thing I don't get about Kyle. When you see a guy fumbling like Jeff Wilson has done, why are you not benching him and bringing someone on and letting them start over them? Because that's what a lot of teams generally do. When a guy fumbles the ball, they bring in the guy behind him to start and, take those reps away from him. You punish the guys when they fumble, so they work not to get fumbled again. But the thing is, with Kyle is he immediately brought him back in when Tyrion Davis-Price was healthy. And so is Jordan Mason. I don't understand that. Maybe it's Kyle, his faith is just in Jeff Wilson and it's unwavering no matter what happens. But it felt kind of weird to not at least punish him for having a fumble, because when he fumbled before, I'm pretty sure Kyle punished him and took him out. And so that was kind of one thing that confuses me. And they're going to be able to run the ball against Kansas City, I think. I think that they will be able to run the ball against the City, but at the same time, Garoppolo just has to be able to make those, 10, 15-yard throws, maybe 1 or 2 20 throws, and have the guys catch it and it be accurate. And I think this game will be close enough for the 49ers to win. And if they win this game, I think everyone swaps everything they've been saying. The stuff about Kyle Shanahan, the stuff about this offense, the stuff about this team in general. That game against the Falcons just really put a sour taste in everyone's mouth because nothing went right. They couldn't play call to save their lives in the second half. The defense was injured. The offense couldn't catch the ball. Fumbles, penalties, everything, right? And it was like deja vu with that Denver game, right? Everything went wrong. Garoppolo stepped out of the back of the end zone. He threw an interception. He couldn't throw the ball downfield. They couldn't run the ball, right? And when things compound like that, they're not going to win. And so I feel like if Kansas City, they can just get ahead of things, get to Mahomes with Bosa, have Travis Kelce on lockdown where he's not getting 100 yards in the first fucking half. Like, be able to stop that offense or keep Mahomes off the field with long drives down the field with the ability to run the ball. I think they have a chance to win this game. You're muted.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I agree with you on that part too. And I think you said something there that I'd like to touch on too. You talked about Mahomes, not his ability to potentially not turn the ball over again in this game and how important that will be. 100% I agree. And I think right now, this might sound weird to say because it's Jimmy Garoppolo we're talking about, but I truly think he needs to be licking his chops right now. What I mean by that is look at the Chiefs corners. Outside of L'Jarius Sneed, who is a really good corner. I like him. I think he's a true CB1. L'Jarius Sneed is good. For those who don't know, that's number 38 on their defense. He's solid. They also have Rashad Fenton. He's been with the team, I think, 3 to 4 years. But he's been over that time, he's been more of a solid depth piece. Hasn't been a starter. They had Charvarius Ward, right? He's gone. So Rashad Fenton has been promoted to a starter because he's been there longer. So L'Jarius Sneed, Rashad Fenton. But they do have 2 young corners, 2 rookie corners. One of them I was pretty high on Joshua Williams, he's like 6'3", runs a 4.3 out of Fayetteville State. I liked him because of his measurables. He's a lot like very much like Tariq Woolen out of Seattle, who's playing really good. He's got 4 interceptions, I think, in 5 starts. That's Tariq Woolen I'm talking about. Josh Williams, very similar mold, very similar build. Then they have another kid. I think he was a 7th round pick, Jalen Watson. And Jalen Watson actually had been starting last week. And I think he didn't start this week because I think he got a little banged up. And so they actually had Joshua Williams start this past week. And he was getting picked on by Josh Allen, whether he was on Gabe Davis or whether he was on Stephon Diggs. Like, they were picking on him. Now, I know Jimmy Garoppolo is no Josh Allen. I'm not saying that. But I am saying Jimmy Garoppolo can still target this kid. He's shown that he's struggled at the catch point currently, and he's been beat off of the line of scrimmage and tracking the ball in the air. Like, I've seen that. And this is coming from a guy who's 6'3", runs 4.3. He's young. He's early in his career. So I look at those two, whether it's Jalen Watson, who has played really well. I think it was week 1 or week 2. I watched the Chiefs play, and the kid had like a 99-yard interception, a pick 6. Those plays can happen, but since then he's kind of been up and down. He's hurt. Joshua Williams, I'm looking at him in a similar light to how when we played the Falcons last year and Ambry Thomas came in, he was kind of getting mossed at the catch point. I think Joshua Williams is kind of reeling like that right now, where I think that the 49ers can potentially take advantage of that. Funnily enough, this is a game I still think we're going to need to put points up, but I think this is also a game where the offense can get back on track, because I do think that we can test their corners. I think Jimmy Garoppolo has shown the ability over the past week to 2 weeks that he is willing to take some shots down the field now. And then I also said this last night too with Amin. Just in my personal opinion, I think Garoppolo is throwing the ball with more zip than I've seen from him probably since 2017. So it's an interesting game. It's a game you look at matchups and I say, okay, if we play things right, we can take advantage of certain things. I hope they do. I hope they can.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that they want to win. You know they want to win. Everyone in that locker room wants to beat these guys because they beat them in the Super Bowl. You know, it's as simple as that, really. They want to win this game, and it's going to come down to maybe they want it more than the Kansas City Chiefs do. I know the Kansas City Chiefs are going to want it after losing to Buffalo. That's a huge loss for them, losing to Buffalo at home, the team you're probably going to see in the AFC Championship game. That's a huge loss. And so I feel like it's going to come down to who wants it more. And I hope it's the San Francisco 49ers, because if they don't want it more and we see another one of those lazy fourth quarters where they don't go down the field, no urgency, they don't do anything except the basic offense just to get out of there and be healthy, that's when I'll start getting worried about Kyle Shanahan's offense. And I think that if it's another game where Garoppolo's making those throws downfield and making decent throws, they're not garbage throws where it's nowhere near the guy, or the route is ran properly and Jimmy Garoppolo puts the ball, or the route is ran improperly and Jimmy puts the ball where it's supposed to be, that's when I'll get really angry, because it's more than just Jimmy at this point. But right now, we only have one game to go from where we're not blaming Jimmy Garoppolo. And it comes down to how they play against Kansas City, what they do against Kansas City, because Jimmy Garoppolo is absolutely the person we blame for the Broncos loss. But this game was a full team offensive loss.
100%.
And we haven't had a lot of those this year. You know, the monsoon doesn't count. I don't care. And the Denver Bronco game is all on Jimmy. There's no one else I had to blame for that game. So this was the offensive loss we had last year where they lost to Colt McCoy. They just couldn't do anything on offense. They couldn't get the ball down the field. Jimmy played fine. I suspect they are going to bounce back, and they're going to win a very close game against Kansas City Chiefs with a last-second Robbie Gould field goal if he's healthy. I think Robbie Gould's healthy again, isn't he?
I believe so. I don't think he's been listed as.
I suspect they will find a way to put it on Andy Gould's. Robbie
Gould.
Someone typed Andy
Reid.
Robbie Gould's foot.
Yeah.
To win at home against Kansas City, and they'll do it. That is my prediction.
I like that.
I think that they'll win 24-21 San Francisco.
Bro, if that happens, I'd love that. Holding them to 21 points would be sick. And I think as I transition to that, I'll say this too. So last week, we just lost to the Falcons, right? We just talked about that. That to me, I call that a squandered opportunity. We could have seized control of the division. We'd be the only 4-2 team in the division. You feeling a little bit better about yourself. Yes, you've had some ups and downs, but you found a way to win a game. You found a way to win more games than not. You're sitting at 4-2. Sadly, we're sitting at 3-3 because of, like you had just said, that was a total team loss. 100% agreed. This week, so squandered opportunity last week. Now I'm looking at this week. I say, okay, wow, litmus test. What is this team? We should be getting Bosa back. We should be Talanoa Hufanga should be out of concussion protocol. Armstead, I think, is going to play. Ward, I'm going to be shocked if he doesn't play. This is his former team. Guaranteed he wants to take it to him. He's been talking. I'm sure you've seen the tweets.
Yeah,
he's tweeting out like, "Show up to the game, faithful. We need y'all. We love this."
Jamal, you're going, right? You're going to go with us?
I'm trying to. I'm really, especially if all these guys are coming back. That's the plan. I'm planning on going. But I say those things to say, look, what is this team, right? So if those guys come back and they do play, now I understand. Listen, it's football. They're not going to be 100%. So is everybody. Nobody's 100% anymore at this point of the season. If they're good enough to play, they're good enough to be on the field, there is no excuse. I've always said that. You're on the field, you need to perform. It's just that simple. And so, yeah, squandered opportunities last week. Litmus test. What is this team? What is this offense? Can you arise to the occasion? I'll take 21-24. Actually, I like that a lot. I do think it'll probably be a 3-point game as well, too, because I do think that, I hate to say this, but I almost feel like we play to our competition a little bit. Just a little bit. Not all the time, but a little bit. And so we're going to rise to the occasion. And you had mentioned this as well, too. The guys played them in 2019. The guys that didn't play them in 2019 are playing Patrick Mahomes. You don't think anybody gets up for Patrick Mahomes? Tell that to Kyer Elam, who's a rookie who I love, who got an interception on Mahomes just the other day, one-handed interception. I love Kyer Elam. I'm a huge fan of his. Tell that to him. Tell that to all the other kids that are like, oh, we got a chance to go up against Mahomes this week and this high-flying offense. I got a chance to lock down Kelsey. Like, guys get up to play the Chiefs. Duh, right? It's the Chiefs. It's the Bills. You get up to play guys like Tom Brady. Those are the games you get up for. So even the guys that weren't there last week or last year, 2 years ago, Lenore, Womack, those guys are going to be ready to play. So Should we come out and be mostly healthy? I like that. My score prediction, I'm going to go with, 21-24 sounds good. I just don't know if can we really hold? I'll go 24-27 49ers. And I'm going to say that because I'm a freaking homer. And I really do think we can win this team. I really think we can beat the Chiefs. Not saying we will, but I'm going to go for it. We need this game. I think we need it slightly more than them. I'm going to go 27-24 Niners.
If we don't win this, then the next week's conversation will be a lot less fun because it's at this point, this is the game. This is the game where it's show me what you got. Show me everything. Show it all to me, Kyle. Show me that everyone saying you should be fired is a stupid idiot because that's what I want to see. Show me. All right?
Let me ask you one thing. Let me ask you this one thing. Can you look at this game? Is there a way that, because I think this can be the case, can the Niners lose this game and we still look at it and say, dang, Mahomes made a play or two that changed the game, and that's the reason they won by 3 points, or they scored a touchdown with a minute left and we didn't score? Can we look at this and be talking next week at 3-4 and say, dang, the 49ers played a hell of a football game. Yeah, this team is good. They just lost because they were playing Mahomes and he just happened to make a play. Like, this team just proved they're up there with the Bills. They're up there with the Chiefs. They can play with the Bucs. Like, can we sit here and say, like, that could happen as well? Because I do think that could be a scenario.
I feel like that is, but the problem is the narratives will still get out of hand no matter what. They have to win this game for the narratives to get back in the line. That's my personal opinion on this. Jamal, if they want to check out your stuff, how can they do it?
You can't. I'm
trying to get people to ring night. We're trying to get to ring night, so I don't.
We got to get to this Warriors-Lakers game. So 100%. If you guys are interested in my material, I just did a show last night with Amin the Dream on his channel. We talked about the Falcons game. We did preview just a little bit of the Chiefs game. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. Check him out. I'm over there with him every other week, but I was out last week, was sick before, so we're doing 2 back-to-back weeks. Monday, yesterday we did one. We'll do another show this next week. You can find me on Twitter. My name right here, Young Jaw, add the numbers 49, the letters ER to it. Young Jaw 49er. That's where you can find me on Twitter. I will potentially be getting started back up with Grant Cone here as well too. So we'll let you guys know with more details if and when that does happen. let's fix this, man. The 49ers got to turn their offense around. They just have to. There's no more excuses. We've said Jimmy Garoppolo needed to step up. Well, I thought he did okay enough to do that. So it's time for the pass catchers to do their part. We play the Chiefs. They're going to have our full attention. Let's see what happens.
Absolutely. You can find me at Niner Nate 49 on Twitter. Check out the podcast. We're always live here on youtube.com. Now on Thursday, me, Kevin, and Chris Polo will sit down and discuss everything you need to know about the Chiefs. Anything that you guys want to ask questions about, tune in, pop on, ask questions. We'll go for another, hour or so. And me, Jamal, and Chris Polo are going to be at the game on Sunday.
That's the hope, man. That's the hope.
Cheering on the Niners while they win this huge, really important game. So can't wait. This is it, right? This is the game. Show me. Show me. This is the most important game of the season. So remember, everyone, hype train never stops.